answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
You think they will ultimately consent and say they're not going to continue building a nuclear weapon? How will you verify?
If they don't, we're not making a deal, okay? So there's no deal. This whole thing is really about no nuclear. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. And if they're going to have a nuclear weapon, we'll be living with them for a little while, but I don't know how much longer they can survive. We could take out every one of their bridges in 1 hour. We could take out every one of their power plants, electric power plants, in 1 hour.
That is President Trump on just how hard we could hit Iran if there's not going to be a peace deal. We're at that final deadline again, and he says he will not extend it. Of course, that will probably depend upon whatever can come out of these latest meetings scheduled. We are in the St. Louis area, 8 hours behind Israel, closer to 10 hours behind Pakistan, which is hosting the talks, but doesn't mean it's taking place in Pakistan. And the point of contention, the Strait of Hormuz and Iran and its nuclear capabilities and desires, they are 8.5 hours ahead of us. So a lot of what I give you plays out in different time zones and certainly at different levels of concern. And President Trump, in that direct statement to Maria Bartiromo, we can take out every plant they have, be it nuclear or any other type. We can take out all their oil facilities. We can do it all within an hour. I have no doubt that that's true. Will it mean obliterating them or just reducing them to non-ability to function? The bottom line is they'll be offline. And in the midst of this, it is not just amazing, nor shocking, and not even frustrating. It's angering and shameful that there's so many Americans that are hell-bent on us not winning against Iran. Why? I want to read you a headline from Breitbart. This is a right-wing publication. Listen to this. Tehran's last lifeline, the American media. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Pretty damn accurate. And we've got members of Congress on both sides of the aisle that are getting a little weak-kneed, and even if they were with Trump, they're getting a little concerned, and they're being whipsawed back and forth, and they're bending. I correct that. They are breaking. Trump does say, if we don't get a ceasefire by Wednesday evening, and keep in mind the time difference, it is, quote, highly unlikely he will extend. He's already made several extensions. He's also made it very clear we're not interested in killing people. We're interested in stopping the regime from having nuclear weapons. And NATO allies kind of still sitting on the sideline, twiddling their thumbs, suggesting we're going to form a coalition of willing allies to deal with the Strait of Hormuz. In other words, they're still blah, 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 blah talking. Trump is taking action, which benefits them, but they don't want to acknowledge it. And you know why? Because in many of those foreign nations, they've allowed so many illegals inside their borders, migrants that are pushers for Iran, not the U.S. Welcome to hour number one, Larry Connors, USA, April 21, 2026. And I remind you with this program, With Larry Connors USA, you always get news, analysis, opinion, and education. You're going to know more when we finish each hour than you do than when we begin. I'll make a point of it. And reminding you, we are live streaming. You can watch the program. You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, Larry Connors USA Rumble, or Facebook. And everything goes up later as a podcast, audio and video. Available at NewsTalk, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook, or anywhere you want to take your podcast. We don't care where you get it. We'd like you to use us, but that's your decision. But I do ask that when you pull up a podcast, please share it with someone else. You are our multiplying factor, and I thank you. In our next hour, I would say a shocking survey on Americans' declining support for Israel. Declining support. And later in this hour, sex scandals and other crimes in Congress. And my guest is going to address how many of these things are still being covered up. And our story behind the story, when thousands of Americans bought do-it-yourself homes through Sears Roebuck catalog, and it would be shipped to them by rail. They would pick it up at the train station and then build their homes. There are many inside the St. Louis area. And we'll get to that later. But to General Jack Keane, four-star general, he says, if you look at what the Wall Street Journal has reported, we should be paying attention.
The Wall Street Journal is indicating that the Iranians, while they've not made a public statement that they're coming, they certainly notified the Pakistanis that they're coming, and they're the hosts. I think they may bring a larger delegation this time, because the last time they weren't able to make any decisions. I suspect they need to make some decisions in front of the Americans as opposed to rushing home to check signals again. So if these discussions are going to be meaningful, they're going to have some decision makers there. But look at the president's got a lot of wind at his back here. He's got the leverage of the blockade for sure, and that has had a great impact, as you're indicating right now, in terms of oil prices. But more importantly, what we have done here in the blockade, what it's about, is shutting down all of Iran's exports. They're obviously their oil exports, which is significant, but also all of the other trading that they're doing, which brings in revenue. It touches 80% of their revenue, which is absolutely staggering.
And how much longer can Iran last at that level? Well, of course, if you're at the very top of the regime, you can live for days and days and weeks and more. But those below suffer. And the more they suffer, the more rebellion you're going to see. Regime change, yes, we would like to see that happen. Many of the Iranian people would like to see it happen. But our main concern is still nuclear weapons. Now, General King was talking about, it appears Iran is going to send a delegation, but exactly who, to the latest talks. The Iranian parliament speaker said, we're going to reveal new cards on the battlefield. Trump, by imposing a siege, violating the ceasefire, seeks to turn this negotiating table in his own imagination into a table of surrender, or justly renewed warmongering. Consider the source, the Iranian parliament speaker, and consider if he has any ability whatsoever. And General King says they will try to test Trump.
Listen, hardliners here. Bahidi has a couple of choices here. One, okay, work it out with Galibov, and let's not test the president. Let's go to the negotiations, but put some strict controls on Galibov in those negotiations. Or, and they're capable of this, Sean, test the president and accept going back to combat operations, because in the end, where they are, they believe that the president will not go completely to the end of it. The pressure on him politically and economically will force him to end it prematurely, and they'll still be standing, and they'll have leverage as a result of it. And no negotiations taking place at all is what he is possibly thinking. And I'm trying to put my head inside a bona fide hardliner who was the guy that was in charge of the Quds Force, and guess who he gave that job over to? Qasem Soleimani. So this is the ilk of what we're dealing with here. I just wanted our viewers to understand some of the thought processes that may be going on here, and even the extreme that I'm mentioning, and why wouldn't they accept what's plausible and also reasonable? Well, because this is the Iranians. And we got long-time history with how unreasonable they absolutely are, and they don't care about their people. They care about what? Personal survival, the regime surviving.
And Galabat is the one he was referring to as the Iranian parliament speaker I was quoting a moment ago. And he says in his social media account, "We will not accept negotiations under the shadow of threats." But I want you to keep in mind, our enemies are not just over there. And by enemies, I mean anyone who wants to see America fail and Iran win. Maria Bartiromo questioning California Congressman Ro Khanna.
Are you suggesting that Obama's leadership on Iran was better? Because under President Obama, there were 14 wire transfers to a... Hold on. There were 14 wire transfers to a Swiss account linked to Hezbollah between 2014 and 2016. That was a total of $1.7 billion. The same $1.7 billion he told Congress was frozen Iranian assets. Now, there was a back channel to Tehran through Valerie Jarrett, active for 2012 to 2024. This was after he left office. So, it was almost like a shadow government. He also sent pellets of cash in a plane to Iran. Now, why would you send money to Iran knowing that they are building a nuclear weapon and they are the leading sponsor of terrorism?
Barack Obama was a great statesman who left America much safer. I wouldn't put Donald Trump in the same paragraph.
No, you certainly could not put him in the same paragraph, because Barack Obama and what he was doing set us up for where we are right now. And now we have currently a U.S. Senator of Connecticut, Chris Murphy, who's been in Spain just to trash America on foreign soil.
Want to bring you greetings as well from a nation that is in crisis. I'm not going to sugarcoat the gravity of what we face right now in the United States. This is the most significant threat to American democracy since the Civil War. Donald Trump in our country is trying to end our democracy. We are not on the verge of a totalitarian takeover. We are in the middle of it. He is trying to seize control of our courts, of our law enforcement, of our media, of our elections. His goal is oligarchic capture.
That is Connecticut Senator Murphy at that progressive gathering in Spain, trashing America. And he also uttered another line on a social media post. He wrote in response to a post that 26 ships in Iran's shadow fleet have made it past our U.S. blockade in the Gulf of Oman. 26. His response, awesome. Awesome. Can you spell treason? Consider where we are. They want Obama. What if Biden had been succeeded by Kamala Harris? Have you considered that possibility?
This is what Kamala had to say about Iran during her presidential campaign.
What country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands, okay? This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles. What we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
So if you have proof that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, would you take military action?
I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals at this moment.
And this is comma on the Iran war after Trump took action.
When it comes down to it, is that if we want to stop Donald Trump with this random decision that he has arrived at, then Congress must act, and Congress must act immediately. The American people do not want our sons and daughters to go into this unauthorized war of choice, and I unequivocally oppose it.
Damn it, do you not understand what's at stake? No, they don't. They are clueless. The Iranians want freedom. They welcome what Trump has and is doing. And nothing underscores that more than this Iranian woman now inside our states.
I just want to say I love this country so much. I love the United States of America to a point where I'm protective of it. I mean, I guess you could call me a patriot at this point, but coming from an immigrant family and having lived in places like Iran, like Turkey, I realize how privileged and lucky we actually are. And I'm really grateful for this country, for its constitutions, for freedom of speech, for its rights, for democracy. And when I see people who don't appreciate what they have here and are just hating on it, people who've never lived elsewhere and are using their freedom, not for good, but to burn the flag of the country they live in, even if it's their right, it's just so disrespectful and really upsetting, disgusting, actually. I also don't understand why someone would choose to live or stay in a country that they hate so much. I mean, no one is forcing you to. You can always leave. You can always go somewhere that aligns more with the laws and the religion or the culture that you love. But that's just the thing. You wouldn't, because then you wouldn't have all those rights and the freedom that you have now. I am forever grateful to be in this country. God bless America.
So a great statement by an Iranian woman, a patriotic statement on behalf of our nation. And yet we continue to have members of Congress continuing to hammer Trump, and they're looking for it for political reasons. You don't like Trump. I got it. But do you hate him more than you love America? And I'm going to tell you, in some cases, many of you do. Shame on you. I can tell you that even if the president in office was one I did not like, when we're in the midst of something like this, I might question what we're doing. I still do. But going out and basically condemning him and our nation. Coming up, my guest on sexual misconduct in Congress and other hidden stories. And the story behind the story. Homes bought through catalogs. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as Support Dogs for Our Brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is NewsTalkSTL.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Been snooping on my door. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Been snooping on my door. You can wag your tail, but I ain't gonna feed you no more.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. We had a report from the House Ethics Committee yesterday, publishing a list of all of its publicly disclosed sexual misconduct investigations going back to 1976. 28 different investigations involving former Texas Congressman Gonzalez and California Congressman Swalwell, both resigning from the House last week, and even the late Congressman Wayne Hayes of Ohio. In a total, 14 were Democrats, 12 were Republicans. One, who since passed away, Congresswoman Alcee Hastings of Florida, investigated twice for pursuing a sexual relationship with a staffer in 2014 and again in 2020. And now our labor secretary on the cabinet resigning because of possible sexual liaisons with a member of her staff. What the hell's going on? John Gordon joining us. He's an attorney. He was endorsed by Trump for the 2022 governor's Georgia AG position. John, welcome aboard.
Thank you much for having me today.
So all of these things laid out, we've gutted the fish, but I'm not sure we got all the guts out.
That's a fair assessment.
So how many cases are still uncovered, ongoing, as I speak?
You know, I don't know. I have no way of knowing. All I know, a lot of people will remain silent and will not do not want to bring attention to themselves over something like this. So they just don't report it. And so there's really no way for us to know how far and wide it goes. But I've worked on Capitol Hill. I worked for a United States Senator when I was in college. And the Hill is teeming with young people, interns, young staffers. And there is a lot of sexual tension in the air. So throughout my career, you know, I'm a very visual person. I appreciate attractive ladies, but I've just always known better than to bring it into the workplace. It's just it's forbidden in our culture.
Yeah.
And the fact that the leaders of our country would engage in it is pretty alarming.
Yeah. Before we go any farther, there is that great big hush fund, which has been paying off basically to buy silence from some in the past.
I think it's apocryphal. we should have full transparency. And for the taxpayers to be paying for hush money, I think is a travesty.
What is your thought about the legal and ethical implications of disclosing the internal investigations, which I was just reading?
Well, there's certainly not anything illegal or unethical about disclosing reports that have been made in good faith, unless you have reason to not to trust the information. Then I think the American people are entitled to seeing it. And you know, I personally draw a line at the workplace. I mean, what someone does outside of their job is really between them, their spouse, and their God. And I think that this prurient interest that we seem to be focused on does not actually lead to some of the best people agreeing to serve in the public. I think we have unrealistic expectations and ample hypocrisy to go around. So, but certainly there is consensual relationships, and I don't think those have a place in the public forum unless it's inside the workplace, and then that's a different story altogether. Certainly non-consensual, regardless of where it takes place, I think deserves to be recognized.
And that is one of the allegations against California Congressman Swalwell, direct statement of rape. Now, again, it's allegation, his word, her word, and that's where a lot of these cases will fall. So are we really getting any, let's say, satisfaction in resolving and making sure whoever is accountable for false statements or false actions is facing the consequences?
100%. And I do feel, you know, they always say, oh, well, I was just guilty of bad judgment. No, you weren't. You were guilty of rape, dude. Don't color it with you bad judgment, but you raped the girl. I mean, come on.
Allegation. You're an attorney. You know that's an allegation.
Of course it is, but they acknowledge it when they say, oh, I had a lapse in judgment. I made a bad decision.
And then say, like you were saying, it's just between my wife and me. When no, it's not. When you're a member of Congress and you're dealing with congressional staffers.
100%. And that is incredibly bad judgment, but it's worse than that. It's bad character. You're using your power to take advantage of someone who lacks that power. And in many cases, they're of young age, so they also lack the judgment. So it's just bad on every level when it transcends into the workplace.
And when you talk about it at that level, jumps into my mind Monica Lewinsky. She and her age against Bill Clinton, a powerful man, obviously, the president. So a lot of these young staffers are influenced, they're swayed. And while it might be considered consensual, you also have to look at how they were looking at it in the sense of what can I get to further my career.
Oh, boy. Here we go down into the rabbit hole. I do have the perception that Monica Lewinsky was a willing participant. I've never heard her make any allegation that she was taken advantage of.
Right.
I think the real villain in that instance, well, there were two. Bill Clinton, he desecrated the Oval Office.
Yes.
You know, Ronald Reagan would not walk into the Oval Office without a suit and tie on. And to bring that activity into the Oval Office is an embarrassment. However, having said that, I think Linda Tripp is the person that I've disliked the most in that whole thing because she had no connection to it, and it was purely a political, opportunistic move on her part. I had little or no use for her.
All right, let me pull you out of the rabbit hole in our last couple of minutes here. I've always had the position. I really like Billy Graham's approach. He would not even be in an elevator by himself with a woman. If he's on the elevator, a woman's coming on, he either gets off or more people get in. I've always had the policy at work, the door stays open if a young woman comes in to talk to me. The door but it's a very private thing I need to talk to you. That's fine. The door stays open. I don't even want the perception. When you come to fishing off the company pier or working inside your romance at office, everything becomes an opportunity for someone to cause havoc and chaos.
I totally agree. And when you allow it to happen, you're inviting turmoil to come into your life. And I follow the same policy that you do. I employed a lot of younger people in our company, and many of them females, attractive females. And I always left the door open, and my secretary was sitting right outside. And preferably we would hold the meeting in a more open place, not inside my office. And if it was a personnel issue, in the HR office with the HR officer.
Right.
In a non-threatening and safe environment.
And then there's the other issue of homosexuality, young male staffers who have been victimized by congressional members.
I don't have insight into that. Most of the instances I'm aware of have involved females, but I'm sure that it happens.
Yeah, there have been allegations of that over the years for some time. But the point is, where we are now, are we missing protections for staffers and whistleblowers who want to put a stop to it?
I think the protections are there. I think the question is how aggressively are we actually investigating these allegations and whether there is justice for the victims. I have the perception that it's largely covered up and that slush fund that you referred to at the beginning of the interview is active and alive. And that's the issue that I have with the whole thing, among others.
What's it going to take to make that public?
The American people have to stand up and demand transparency and justice. And the American people have the power. They just have to exercise it. So you write letters, you call talk radio, you make your voice heard. And if enough people do it, the legislators will respond.
You're listening, John Gordon, attorney. He was endorsed by Trump in the 2022 Georgia Attorney General's office, and he has his own syndicated radio show, The Truth with John Gordon. John, I want to thank you for your time and your insight, sir.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't know that we're going to get transparency anytime soon. And then it's a matter of whose ox is being gored, correct? Yeah. Our story behind the story, when Americans were ordering homes through a Sears Roebuck catalog.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's, locally owned, can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-E-R, onderlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
There was a time in America when people didn't buy a house by meeting an architect or paying a contractor. They opened a catalog, picked a style, placed an order, and then an entire house was loaded onto a train and shipped to their town, just like an online order placed way back in 1910. These homes once stood all across America. The early 20th century across America was defined by new communities rapidly rising to meet the influx of people moving in search of work. Dirt roads, half-finished roofs, the sound of hammers and freight trains chugging through town were the familiar sounds of that era. At that time, having a roof over your head wasn't just shelter, it was a pivotal milestone, confirming a family had finally set down roots in a new place. As Americans flooded industrial states for factory jobs, the need for decent housing became critical. But building a house the traditional way was neither cheap nor fast. Materials were scarce, builders charged high fees, and construction dragged on for months. In that environment, the word home was often more of a dream than a reality for the working class that formed the nation's economic backbone. Before catalog homes arrived, Americans were already accustomed to a different kind of consumerism: mail order. From pocket watches and sewing machines to shoes and seeds, everything could be ordered via catalog and delivered. They trusted this type of transaction, having used it for decades before thinking about buying a house. Americans of that era were highly practical. If there was a way that was cheaper, faster, and more convenient, they were eager to try it. They were already used to opening a catalog, marking the item, sending the order, and waiting for the goods to arrive at the train station.
Sounds a little bit like today's Amazon, right? We're talking about Sears Roebuck mail order homes from their Sears home catalogs through the 1910s, 1940s. In fact, according to Sears, from 1908 to 1942, they sold more than 70,000 of these homes. Many went to customers in the East Coast area and the Midwest states. I'll get to that in a little bit more detail, specifically Missouri and Illinois shortly. But they also went as far as Florida, as far west as California, and even into Alaska and Canada. I'm holding here in my hot little hands, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, or he would say nicotine stained, I think, one of the building plans offered by Sears Roebuck catalog, $1,995 in free building plans to put your home together. And as you heard, everything would be put onto a train and shipped to you. They had 370 different designs. I've got another one here for $2,065. This would be a 10-room residence. Again, it's coming to you by rail for you to put together. But it was popular for Sears.
When the idea of a mail-order house was still new to most people, Sears was in a vastly different position than its competitors. Sears wasn't just a store, it was a routine, a consumer trust that millions of American households had relied on for years. The thick, hundreds-page catalogs of Sears already rested on kitchen tables, on living room shelves, even next to the beds of many families, like a book of purchasable dreams. That habit established a powerful foundation. When Sears announced they could sell an entire complete house, that promise didn't come from a strange, unknown company, but from a name already present in every drawer and utility bill of American life. In 1908, the first Book of Modern Homes and Building Plans from Sears was born. Inside were not just drawings, they were dreams ready to be assembled. Each house model was named with dimensions, floor plans, price, and a complete list of materials. Viewers weren't just looking at a design, they saw a life that could happen within it. A living room where children would read the newspaper, a kitchen where the wife would cook breakfast, a porch where the family would relax on summer evenings. Compared to finding a contractor, negotiating prices, and waiting months for construction, choosing a home in a catalog, signing the papers, and waiting for a train car of materials was like shortening an entire year into a few weeks.
And that sounded fantastic. Of course, once it arrived, you had to pick it up at the rail yard. And then there was that other very basic piece. You had to build the house.
The assembly instructions were easy to understand. Every part was coded, and the construction sequence was logical. So even an unskilled working family could build their home without feeling helpless amidst the pile of wood, nails, glass, and walls. Behind every Sears house wasn't just an economic story, but a story of social order. When a family built their house, neighbors often pitched in. Children watched. Passers-by stopped to ask. A Sears house was sometimes built not just by one family, but by an entire neighborhood contributing labor. And thus, when the porch was finished, the celebratory meal belonged not just to one household, but to an entire community. This created a cultural characteristic that modern pre-built homes cannot replicate. A house was not just received, it was erected by the owner's own hands. When a family built a home from a Sears kit, they weren't just buying a product, they were entering their family history with a milestone no one could erase. Sears also gained ground because, compared to the market price at the time, catalog homes were significantly cheaper. A house could range from a few hundred to a few $1,000s, cheaper than hiring a contractor, cheaper than buying materials retail, and save time.
And in some cases, Sears would provide construction services. Our folks would hire local carpenters to help with various parts. Otherwise, it's kind of like an old-fashioned barn building. All the friends and neighbors came to help. If I had been around at that point, I was not, don't even think of that. But if I'd been around and anyone had asked me, Larry, you want to help build my house for me? My response then would be the same as today when asked to do something. I'd say, that sounds like a project. And indeed it was. That sounds like a project, and I have a motto. I don't do projects, so I was not going to be of any use to them. You know, several communities still contain these homes, now valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars. So yes, there is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
Well, in 1908, Sears started offering entire kit homes through these catalogs. You could purchase a kit home out of a catalog, and it would come to you in about 30,000 pieces of house. And they included a 75-page instruction book with the house, so you'd know how to put all those pieces of house together.
What these kits didn't come with was the person who put the homes together, giving a whole new meaning to the term, some assembly required.
Sears promised a man of average abilities could assemble one of these homes in about 90 days.
Typically, it took a little longer than that for your average kit homeowner. Most people recruited their family and friends to work nights and weekends, and for many, it was more like 9 months than 90 days. But for some, it took even longer.
Got another great letter from somebody who said they had a Sears kit home. They moved in 1946. I said, well, that's interesting, but Sears actually stopped selling these in 1940. She said, oh, you don't understand. I bought it in 39. We finished in 46.
That would be me helping out, or not helping out. That's part of a Channel 9 PBS documentary. The previous soundbite you were hearing is from another documentary titled Back to Yesterday. But the PBS documentary also pointed out how many of these Sears modern homes, the kit houses, exist in the St. Louis area, St. Louis, Jefferson City, and Springfield.
About 5-6 years ago, somebody asked me to write an article about the Sears homes in Carlinville. Carlinville, Illinois has 152 Sears homes in a 12-block area. So I drove over there expecting to, dash off one quick article and get my check, as most freelancers do. And I went over there and I drove the 12 blocks of these Sears homes, and I was smitten. I was completely in love. And then as I researched the story, I was just ever more enamored of the whole affair, because these came in boxcars. They came in pieces and bits, and people build them.
Rose is attracted to these homes because of how they came to be. Customers thumbed through Sears catalogs like they were shopping for tools or furniture. And, well, they ordered themselves a house.
Richard Warren Sears is one of my heroes in history. He was an absolute genius at merchandising. And his catalog at its peak had 1,400 pages, 100,000 items, and weighed 4 pounds. He suspected that getting more people into a home of their own was a way to sell more of the stuff in his catalog. So I think that was a driving part of why he started selling kit homes.
And by the way, that catalog often became a permanent fixture in outdoor outhouses with not enough toilet paper. You get the idea? Right. That was, again, part of the PBS special. And the woman talking, Rosemary Thornton Wheeler, she wrote a couple of books about all this, The House the Sears Built and Finding the Houses that Sears Built, which is what she was doing and talking about in Carlinville. Significant numbers, like Kirkwood had about 25 homes, Webster Groves, Glendale similar, Jefferson City had additional, Springfield, and many of them have stamped lumber in the basement attics or recognizable design kits. And all of this, according to another documentary, this house was a good idea until.
Well, the Great Depression hit Sears hard, forcing the company to stop offering mortgage financing by 1933. Despite this setback, the company continued to sell homes until 1942. Over the program's lifetime, Sears sold more than 70,000 homes across North America, many of which are still standing today. As the economy began bouncing back following World War II, others attempted to pick up where Sears Roebuck & Company left off. In the 1950s, one of America's most celebrated architects, Frank Lloyd Wright, partnered with Marshall Erskine, who was selling prefab housing. Their partnership went on to create architect-designed housing for the middle class, and while their collaboration wasn't overly successful, it inspired more modest and practical designs to hit the market under other companies. The most successful kit homes in this period were designed by St. Louis-based architect Ralph Fournier, whose homes ended up in 195 cities around the world. His process required that every single wall be fully finished in a factory and then shipped out to the lot. Once there, bolts would be fastened, and within a single day, an entire house could be completed. He offered a variety of plans with very few customizations, which were mostly cosmetic, and required only that a slab foundation be ready to assemble the house on. Throughout the mid-century, kit homes evolved to have less and less parts, relying more on factories to assemble large components before shipping them out to be assembled. This then turned into entire residences being built before being shipped out. This includes everything from trailers to cracker box housing. Unfortunately, in simplifying this process, these residences became less and less desirable as the decades rolled on. By the 1990s, what was once viewed as a fashionable and inexpensive housing option for the middle class became synonymous with the lower class, which is terribly unfortunate because this method of building houses is far more economical and quicker to build.
Ralph Fournier, and his wife built a lot of homes, about 1,100 square feet for the most part, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, selling for around $14,000. He had said in a 2017 Post-Dispatch interview, they were good homes for people who didn't have a lot of money. And many of the Fournay homes still exist in North and West St. Louis County. And elsewhere around the nation, other Sears homes. And the value of these homes, if they've been maintained properly, and many times added on to. There's a 1925 colonial-style home in D.C. It was a Sears, Roebuck & Company kit home, titled the Martha Washington, sold in the 1920s for $3,700. It sold last year, according to, let me correct that, in 2016, it sold for $1.06 million. That's a good return on your money if you're still around. And many of the homes, even in more recent times, have sold above $600,000 when they originally were bought for maybe no more than $3,500, maybe $4,000. Some homeowners have overhauled the homes entirely, but many have wanted to keep the original look and design, at least the frontage. But as you heard, part of the issue was that Sears also offered financing. But when the Depression came along, it had to drop off offering the financing. Ralph Fournay did not do just the Sears Roebuck homes. He, again, designed many. He passed away at age 98 in 2020. Big box stores, in some cases, are still offering plans and kits. Some of your major lumberyard companies, you might still find, are offering do-it-yourself home building. Full set of plans, how to put everything together. You just have to do the work, which, again, don't bother calling me. You'd be wasting your time. I don't do projects. The story behind the story tomorrow. The death of one of the more controversial presidents we have. Obviously not Trump, Richard Nixon. That's tomorrow. Second hour still to come. And remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcast of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Beal Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Beal to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Beal has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Beal. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge. A wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law. O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And, of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And, again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. O-N-D-E-R. OnderLaw.com. Wins.
This is NewsTalk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I think what we're witnessing right before our eyes is a power struggle inside of Iran. And yes, Galibaf, while he was a general in the IRGC at one point, right along with Vahidi, who is now the head general in the IRGC, Galibaf does represent the political side of it because he's the head speaker in the parliament. And I think they are really at odds. We have talked to Galibaf in the past, and so we know for a fact that he is willing to make some compromises on the deal. In other words, some concessions to the United States. It's likely, we don't know for a fact, but Vahidi disagrees with all of that. And this power struggle is going on, and what will be the resolution of it?
What will be the resolution? That was four-star general retired Jack King talking about the Iranian parliament leader, Galibaf, I should say. The question is he really in charge? We're not really sure. We're trying to hold talks with those representing Iran, and yet it's not clear who we're supposed to be talking to. Now, he's putting himself forward as saying that he is, and he's going to reveal new cards on the battlefield, whatever that means, and stating that Trump, by imposing a siege and violating the ceasefire, which we didn't, seeks to turn this negotiating table in his own imagination into a table of surrender or to justify renewed warmongering. We do not accept negotiations under the shadow of threats. So in the past 2 weeks, we have prepared to reveal new cards on the battlefield. I think he's just blowing smoke. What new cards would they have? What new abilities or weapons would they have? And keep in mind, from the time that we started trying to deal with Iran militarily, we have greatly increased our forces and ability in the region. And yet, we still have some even in our midst that will not accept what Trump is doing. You don't have to accept everything he's doing. I'm not asking you to do that. First of all, I'm not even encouraging you to do anything I suggest. That's your decision. And we might have difference of degrees. But do you accept the fact that it's a good idea and good for our nation and the world for sitting members of Congress to go to a foreign country just to trash Trump while we're in the midst of this war action. And, of course, you got the legacy media. Rachel Madcow, her statement. You know, we need to go to the mullahs to fact-check Trump. Are you serious? Yeah, unfortunately, she is. California Congressman Ro Khanna said, and I had a clip of that earlier in the first hour. Did you miss the first hour? What a shame. You can pull up the podcast. I encourage you to do it. But Ro Khanna was basically telling Maria Bartiromo, I think I'd take the Iranians' word over Trump's word. Are you serious? Yes, he is. All right, here we go with hour number 2, Larry Connors USA, and I don't care what hour we have, we're out of the gate like a bull, every time. We bring you news, analysis, commentary, and education. Every hour you're going to learn something that you did not know as we began that hour. Give you an example. In the last hour, our segment, The Story Behind the Story, which we now air in the 6 o'clock hour every day, dealt with when you could buy a home through Sears Roebuck catalog. Thousands of homes were built that way. Some big box lumber stores are now offering the same thing. And, of course, the other thing that put an end to build your own home was mobile homes. That's what we lived in as my dad worked in the oil field patch. Yes, I'm oil field trash and proud of it. And we moved a lot. It's a lot easier to move when you got wheels under the home. So we'd never really had a, quote, structured home until I was in maybe the 3rd grade, I'm thinking, in Odessa, Texas. I have no way of knowing how much pride that gave my father and mother to have an actual home. But back in the 20s and into the early 40s, that's what Sears Roebuck was doing for thousands who wanted their own home but couldn't afford it unless they bought a kit, and all the parts would be delivered with the plans via railroad station. And then you, with help of friends, family, maybe hiring some, would put the home up. Many of them still exist, even in this area. If you missed that story, go back and pull up our first hour. Podcast available at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, and Larry Connors USA Facebook. Coming up, a shocking survey. I consider it a shocking survey on Americans' changing view of Israel. And I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. But we'll get to that before this hour is out. Back to what we're trying to do now with Iran and what Iran's options might be. Again, 4-star General Jack King.
There's a couple of paths here. One, take President Trump serious, that if you don't come to the negotiating table and the ceasefire ends, by the way, it's Wednesday, not Tuesday it ends, and if it ends on Wednesday and he promises to go back to full combat operations. But so our audience understands, we have twice the capability on the U.S. side in the theater now than when we had when we started the war. We have never given up bringing in additional assets to assist with the execution of our wartime objectives. The Israelis, who had some ammunition shortages, have full magazine depth now. So if we go back to combat operations, they are going to be absolutely full throttle and considerably more dramatic than anything the Iranians have experienced, to include all the targets the president is talking about, and then some.
And then some. And you're going to hear in a moment how fast we can react if Iran does not want to do, quote, legitimate concessions and bargaining. You heard General King talk about the date and time difference. It's Tuesday here. It's Wednesday already in the Middle East. Iran is 8.5 hours from the U.S. The talks are being held in Pakistan, Islamabad, Pakistan. That's 10 hours from St. Louis time. So as you're listening to the program right now, they're already well into the day of Wednesday. And Trump has said Wednesday is the deadline, and I will not extend it. That's what he said. And we'll see if anything changes that. But when questioned by Maria Bartiromo, Trump made it very clear, if they're not going to work with us, they will pay a price.
Do you think they will ultimately consent and say they're not going to continue building a nuclear weapon? How will you verify?
If they don't, we're not making a deal, okay? So there's no deal. This whole thing is really about no nuclear. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. And if they're going to have a nuclear weapon, we'll be living with them for a little while, but I don't know how much longer they can survive. We could take out every one of their bridges in 1 hour. We could take out every one of their power plants, electric power plants, in 1 hour.
In 1 hour. Now, those who travel the bridges should know you probably should stay off of them. Those who work in the power plants, you probably don't want to go to work. But if the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is demanding you go, or else we will kill you and your family, you're probably going to go. Again, the talks are very fluid. It will change before I finish this sentence. Let me tell you that. And at the last word, the very last word as I speak is Vice President Vance not going to be going to Islamabad. And Iran is saying no talks with the U.S. for now. Another stall tactic, possibly. It certainly would be. And General King says what we're seeing Iran do, continue to test Trump.
Listen, hardliners here. Bahidi has a couple of choices here. One, okay, work it out with Galibov and let's not test the president. Let's go to the negotiations, but put some strict controls on Galibov in those negotiations. Or, and they're capable of this, Sean, test the president and accept going back to combat operations, because in the end, where they are, they believe that the president will not go completely to the end of it. The pressure on him politically and economically will force him to end it prematurely, and they'll still be standing. And they'll have leverage as a result of it. And no negotiations taking place at all is what he is possibly thinking. And I'm trying to put my head inside a bona fide hardliner who was the guy that was in charge of the Quds Force, and guess who he gave that job over to? Qasem Soleimani. So this is the ilk of what we're dealing with here. I just wanted our viewers to understand some of the thought processes that may be going on here, and even the extreme that I'm mentioning, and why wouldn't they accept what's plausible and also reasonable? Well, because this is the Iranians. And we got long time history with how unreasonable they absolutely are, and they don't care about their people. They care about what? Personal survival, the regime surviving.
Exactly. And in this country, we have those who hate Trump so much they'd rather side with Iran. Now, you can accept the legacy media carrying the water for Iran, accept the idiocy of Rachel Madcow. Oh, we need to talk to the mullahs to verify everything Trump says. And even to the extent that some members of Congress have acknowledged, well, we believe Iran more so. Ro Khanna of California said it. Basically, I believe the Iranians, the regime, more than I do our president. Then you got Democrat Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy. He wrote on his X post regarding the fact that supposedly 26 ships in Iran's shadow fleet didn't make it past the U.S. blockade in the Gulf of Oman. I don't know if they did or didn't, and if they were allowed to go through when we could have stopped them. It was what we did the other day with one. Now, there were conflicting reports on that ship we stopped the other day by hitting the engine room. We warned them repeatedly, stop, and they continued, said, evacuate your engine room because we're going to blow a hole in it. So again, we did not want to kill anyone, but we're going to stop the ship. And there were various reports coming out that it was an oil cargo ship, oil being brought in by a tanker. Other reports said it was just a cargo ship. And the cargo involved drones and other items of that nature from China going to Iran. I don't know what the fact is, other than the ship was stopped. But the report of 26 ships in Iran's shadow fleet got past the blockade. Whether that's a fact or not, Senator Murphy of Connecticut said one word: awesome. Awesome. And yet, in the midst of the Democrats, there is some sanity. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman.
I might be the only Democrat that supports, what's happened through Epic Fury, but I am the only Democrat, definitely in the Senate, and now the only Democrat in Congress, I think, now to support Epic Fury at this point. And I'll never understand why my party just can't just see that there's been a lot of good developments through a lot of these things. I mean, I don't, to pulverize the Iranian military. Every single Democrat has said we can never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb. And now they've been the evil regime. And I think eliminating their leadership is a strong development. And then I thought, almost like the media and the Democrats were gleeful, when Iran, took the Strait. And then, and then that pivot, we remind the world that we run it, we control it. And that forced China to get involved and to push Iran to just acknowledge, that's checkmate.
It is checkmate. And at this point, we're waiting to see if we clear the board entirely, and we might well do it. Well, of course, a lot of this also weighs with consumers complaining, oh, my gas prices are up and other prices. Yes, but can you not understand the sacrifice of our young men and women downrange in harm's way versus your concern over a couple more pennies for a gallon of gas? I feel for you if it's difficult. I do. But I'm more concerned about the human lives, American lives, in danger. And, of course, the midterms might be a test of what's going to happen going forward. Well, Judicial Watch says integrity issues are still at stake.
We have crossed another humongous threshold, which is the removal of 6 million dirty names from the voter rolls nationally. 6 million number has been reached and arguably surpassed as a result of new information we have from the state of Colorado in response to a settlement and lawsuit and just great work by our lawyers to clean up the voter rolls in Colorado. They informed us that 372,000 inactive voters have been removed from Colorado's voter rolls after Judicial Watch's lawsuit and settlement.
Good. Get them out of here. In the meantime, we know groups like Act Blue who have been working with Soros money and everything, trying to swing the elections, to cheat. House depositions underway with Act Blue employees. And the reports are that those employees have pled the fifth more than 100 times. You can't convict them for perjury if they say, I'm taking the fifth. So they know what they need to cover up. And that's why we need to make sure you are active for the midterms. And then we have new surveys out regarding what America thinks of Israel. This from CNN and Harry Enton. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
What you say?
Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Israel is losing support here in the United States, even amongst Republicans. Take a look at this data. Take a look at this data amongst young Republicans. Look at this massive shift that we have had over just the last 4 years, the net favorability of Israel among Republicans under the age of 50. You go back to 2022, two thumbs up for Israel amongst young Republicans. But by 2025, look at this. Already a 30-point shift away, their net favorability down to -2. Today, look at this, -16 points. That's an over 40-point shift in just 1, 2, 3, 4 years' time away from Israel amongst young Republicans.
That is a major shift. And he's talking about young Republicans. We're going to break it down in more detail. That's Harry Etten on CNN, and I believe that particular survey was a Gallup survey. In fact, I think all the sound bites you're going to hear from him refer to a recent Gallup survey. There might be some other surveys thrown in. But again, young Republicans turning away from Israel. And why is part of the question. Well, I'll share one thing that might explain it. This attitude of we're going to be a big tent. We want everybody. We want everybody in our tent. I want to throw a wrench into that idea in a moment. But let me go to Virginia Congressman Suhas Subramanyam. Maybe I'm mispronouncing it. I'm not mispronouncing it on purpose. It's SUBRAMANYAM. And his nationality, ethnicity, I don't see here in front of me, but it's what he has to say that I'm really concerned about. He's saying that if a Democrat U.S. Senate candidate, a former Wayne County Health Director, Abu al-Sayed, recently said that he thinks Israel's government is as evil as Hamas. May I repeat that for you? Israel's government is as evil as Hamas. And this Democrat Virginia congressman said, if that guy wins the primary in Michigan, I would still want him to win over the Republican. The reality is we need a majority in the Senate. Well, that is a true reality. He said, we're a big tent party. And right now we have to welcome everyone who wants to be part of our party. Really? You'd welcome in those who had no issue with slaughtering innocent men, women, and children on October 7th when Hamas invaded Israel. You have no issue with that. Well, then let me propose this. You want a big tent party? How about you invite all members, past, present, and future, of the KKK into your party? How would that go over? You know it wouldn't. So why be willing to pull in someone who likes Hamas over Israel? They're seeing writing on the wall is what they're doing. I'm not saying it's correct, but they're testing the wind. And I would imagine in some cases, huffing and puffing to redirect the wind. But again, back to the survey results. N did a piece talking about moderate and liberal Republicans. I'm going to ask you right now, what is a liberal Republican? Well, I can think of some people who would fall into that category. They can be called liberal, but I would strip them of the title Republican. But here's what the survey says.
How about amongst moderate or liberal Republicans? They make up about a third of the Republican base at this point in time. The net favorability of Israel with moderate liberal Republicans back in 2022, again, 2 thumbs up. You'll notice I do a lot of Siskel and Ebert references. I just really like them. At plus 26 points. Today, again, negative territory, minus 9 points. That's a 35-point shift in just 4 years' time, with moderate liberal Republicans shifting away from Israel. And this, to me, gives you a good indication of why one of the more ardent critics of Israel within the Republican Party is actually, at this point, favored to win a competitive primary. You may know him, Thomas Massie. He, of course, is the representative from Kentucky's 4th District. He has been opposed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump has endorsed his opponent. Pro-Israel voices are also opposed. Many of them have also opposed Thomas Massie. But at this point, look at this. His chance of being the Republican nominee, winning that Republican primary in Kentucky's 4th District, is actually more likely than not to occur. Look at this. According to the Kalshi prediction market at this point, a 71% chance.
71% chance that a Republican who is basically anti-Israel, and therefore I would say pro-Hamas, is likely to win in Kentucky. What the hell are you drinking in Kentucky? Kentucky now is not good bourbon, I can tell you that. And then you look at young men that, according to the survey, they consider young men under the age of 50. They didn't call and ask me. I don't know why. I mean, I guess because of the age 50, that maybe they think I'm older than 50. They should have called me anyway. But once again, Harry Enton.
Younger men who were a key part of Donald John Trump's coalition back in 2024. They have very much shifted away from Israel. Look at this. Net favorability of Israel among men under the age of 50. In 2022, not too bad, but not too hot to trot either at minus 3 points. By 2025, again, down we go, minus 22 points. That is a 19-point shift in just 3 years' time. But it gets even worse. Look at this for Israel. Minus 47 points. That's a 44-point shift away from Israel on the net favorability amongst young men who, of course, shifted massively into the Republican column back in 2024, and they have been shifting away from Israel over the last 4 years.
I know it's hard to follow the numbers when they're being thrown at you on the radio. Be better to see the numbers in your face. But you get the point. 40% of, quote, young Republicans, those under 50, shifting away from supporting Israel. And they were the base and should remain a base for the Republican Party and Trump moving forward. But if they are going against Israel, and again I say, if you're against Israel, you are basically accepting Hamas. Some will say that's too much of a generalization. Well, I disagree, and you're entitled to disagree with me. California. I'm looking at a piece here that suggests in California, Israel is emerging as a defining Democrat test. And once again, one of Harry Etten's surveys, a Gallup poll, suggests that is true.
This is a change. This is a change. Who Americans sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Back in 2022, before the October 7th attacks, it was the Israelis by 28 points. That would even climb into the 40s, 50s, depending on which polling you looked at in terms of who Americans sympathize with, the margin very much on the side of Israel. But look at where we are now. In 2026, Americans sympathize more with the Palestinians by an 11-point margin. That is a shift of nearly 40 points in just 4 years' time. And when you compare it to 2023, after the October 7th attacks, we're talking about what, a 50, 60-point change? My goodness gracious. This is the best position that the Palestinians have ever been in the minds of the American public. The Palestinians making history in terms of who Americans sympathize more with. But it is not just the Israelis and the Palestinian conflict why we're seeing these shifts among all these different groups and overall as well. It is because of the man who right now is the prime minister, the longtime prime minister.
Netanyahu. Netanyahu has been in office off and on, and more recently in office for an extended period of time since 2022, but he'd also been in from 96 to 99 and then 2009 to 21. So they don't like Netanyahu any more than many Americans, not most at this point, hate Trump. In California, if they're going to make the congressional races as a proxy war over the divide on Israel, they point out from the race to succeed Pelosi in San Francisco to the primary in the Central Valley of San Francisco, Democrats are tearing into each other over U.S. support for Israel. Progressives, whether they're running to claim a long-sought Republican district or push out a liberal icon, say it's not complicated. Candidates who will not challenge Israel are out of step with their voters, and they're not going to be put back in power. So the issue is not just a symbolic debate. If Democrats win back Congress, the next class of lawmakers could help decide the level and terms of what the U.S. does in backing Israel. May I repeat that? If these kinds of Democrats get in power, they may well welcome Hamas into the chambers of Congress and reject Israel. Coming up, Erica Kirk back at Turning Point USA, still trying to salvage our nation.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Under Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is Silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
If you look around the world right now, Europe has surrendered itself to third world criminals, and under the Biden administration, we were on track for that for ourselves. But President Trump came in and course corrected. In countries like Nigeria, radical Islamists are murdering Christians for their faith. In Canada, they'll tell you you're better off getting medically assisted suicide than believing in the sanctity of life. While in America, we understand that a free life is worth living.
That is Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk, speaking at a Turning Point USA event at a Phoenix church the other day. She was joined by President Trump at that event. And, of course, this followed the event she had to step away from in Georgia because of security threats directly against her. And J.D. Vance was there, and he went ahead and made an appearance, but he told her, considering what's happened to your family and your children, you do not have to take this risk. If your team says it's too dangerous and there's a serious threat, then you make that decision. Now, later, the Secret Service stated there was no credible threat. I don't know what they're constituting a credible threat. The woman's husband has been slaughtered in front of thousands of students previously. But she chose to go ahead and not take part in that event. But she did join President Trump in remarks at a church in Arizona. It's a Turning Point USA event called Build the Red Wall. Now, the Red Wall is again trying to control states where we have conservatives in control. Build the Red Wall. It's not a physical wall, and yet it is. Trump was there with her to bolster support among young voters ahead of midterms. A recent polling from Yale says that affordability is the top concern of voters aged 18 to 34. I would add this, not taking away what their concerns are about affordability. We've all had affordability issues. But riddle me this, where were the concerns about affordability when the Biden regulations and the Obama regulations were hammered into us, saying that you're not going to be able to have a gas stove, a gas lawnmower, a gas car. You must switch electric or do your own walking. And when they were pushing rates left and right, and they were stealing on a constant basis, and also allowing others to steal. This midterm election, like all of them, is important. But in this case, we've got so many crying out affordability. I'm not going to dismiss that casually. I know many are not where they would like to be when it comes to economic status. I understand that. But when we're in the middle of the war, can you not accept some responsibility and sacrifice at your part? And especially those 18 to 34. Especially those 18 to 24, 28, which makes up a lot of those downrange right now in harm's way in the Middle East. Where's your concern for their affordability to live? And where's your concern for the affordability of life if everything gets wiped out because Iran gets a nuclear weapon? I don't care if you're invested deep into gold, silver, or you got cash stuffed in your freezer and under your mattress. It will mean not a damn thing when a nuke goes off. When Trump made his appearance the other day at the Phoenix church, he did get some flack, obviously led by the leftist media and some inside the Republican Party, because of that recent image, the AI image that supposedly depicted him as Jesus, because he was saying the pontiff is weak on crime. And he said, I look at that as a picture of me as a doctor healing our nation. I didn't see it that way, Mr. Trump. I saw it exactly as many thought it was, you appearing to be as Jesus in healing. I find that unacceptable, deplorable, should not have been done. But he did take responsibility for posting it, just claimed that, well, I thought I was a doctor healing the nation. I think you bought into some lie and spread it. But reference the midterm election and the value of it, and to build the red wall. Do you remember going back when Hillary Clinton was running against Trump the first time, the only time she did? And all the political commentators and pundits on the left, basically all the legacy media, Trump cannot win. He cannot break down the blue wall of the blue states. And they said that repeatedly. And Hillary believed it to the extent she didn't bother campaigning in some of those blue states. Oh, I got this. I don't need it. I don't need to go out there and waste my time. He didn't just climb over the blue wall. He broke it down. So now Republicans need to make sure our red wall is solid. So you're not really a Republican. Would you consider yourself an independent? Okay. So you're not a Trumpian. Would you consider yourself more in line with Kamala Harris? Good luck with that. No, she's not running the midterm, but the record of Biden and Harris is still on the table, as is the Trump record. And right now, all the left has to point to, he's got us in a war. He said he wouldn't. And yet he keeps trying to find ways to get out of it. He keeps offering peace deal after peace deal. To the extent that we are not hitting civilian populations, we're hitting industrial complexes, military installations, and putting a blockade in force to prevent Iran from getting more goods to make more weapons and shipping out oil to get more money to continue the cycle. And yet, from the Rachel Madcow show on MSN Now, and Georgia Democrat Senator Ossoff said, I think people across the political spectrum are feeling outraged that while families in Georgia are made to pay more and more for everything, have you looked at what you're paying in Georgia for taxes and elsewhere? Not federal taxes, nothing that Trump would have anything to do with. I'm just asking. I don't know what the numbers are, haven't bothered researching. You may have relatives living in Georgia, and it may be a tougher time than it had been. Well, Ossoff is trying to use that as a bargaining chip to get more votes for the Democrats. So if you're paying more and more for everything, the first family is pocketing vast sums of money from all over the world. Have you heard that before? During the Biden term, when Hunter Biden was directly in contact with Russian oligarchs, pocketing money, getting a big job at a Ukrainian oil company when he did not know the first thing about oil. If you want to complain that the Trump family is getting rich off of the world because of these things, so well, go ahead. But he says he's referring directly to Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, Jew, leading diplomacy in the Middle East. He said he's bringing in billions from Middle East princes and sheikhs going around the region asking for billions more while conducting nuclear diplomacy. He said it's cartoonist, it's grotesque, it's obscene. Where's your proof that he's doing that? I forgot. If you're a guest on Rachel Madcow or any of the other legacy media, you don't have to defend your statements. You don't have to back them up. You don't have to put a fact one up. You can just say it. And everybody will slurp it up, as I've said before, like puppies at the water bowl. So he said, with command of Senate committees and subpoena power, once we're back in power, imagine Secretary Pete Hegseth, if he remains secretary that long, I suspect at that point we'll have to come and testify under oath about reports that his stockbroker was calling around trying to buy him defense stocks just days before the Iran war broke out. I have not heard one mention of that until now. I don't know where it began. Some seedy mind in a dark corner. Hey, psst, psst. You know Jared's calling around and Hegseth trying to buy defense stocks right before we move on Iran? If it's true, nail them to the wall. I'm in favor of that. There are no sacred cows, in my view. And if they step over the line and we're doing that, yeah, nail them to the wall. But give me one shred of proof. One. and they cannot. But he does say once we're back in control, we'll be able to investigate the participation in this grotesque conflict of interest. We will deter corruption. This is Democrat Senator Ossoff, who stood silently on the sidelines while the Biden crime family was racking up everything it could around the world. And then don't forget the Hillary Clinton Foundation, when they were out not trying to save the world, but save the Clintons and dealing with Russia directly. And Bill Clinton getting a massive fee just for showing up and doing a, hey, how you doing? I got some stories to share with you. $500,000 for something like that. I'll be honest with you. I would do it for 50. And I think I could be more entertaining, to be quite honest. We have enemies outside our borders, and we have enemies of our nation inside our borders. Trump made a remark the other day regarding enemies, and he's talking about foreign enemies, but I want to encapsulate all of it, and it bears repeating.
America was not founded by weak and timid men who cowered in the face of evil or sat by as danger loomed and let our country go to hell. We are descended from the likes of George Washington, Andrew Jackson, Generals Ulysses S. Grant, Douglas MacArthur, General George Patton. Our ancestors knew exactly what to do with America's enemies. Beat them and beat them good. That's what they had to do. That's what they had to do.
It's what we have to do with our enemies around the world and what we must do with enemies inside our nation. Now, in our nation, you can have a dissenting view, and we're not going to line you up against a wall and shoot you, as they do in Iran. So all of those Democrats that are pushing more for Iran to come out victorious, shame on you, first of all. And secondly, stop to think what would happen if we had the Iranian regime ruling this nation. We don't have the fortitude, the courage, the backbone, the spirit of the greatest generation that saved us during World War II. Not just our nation, but the world. Germany, you know that. And Russia, you know that as well. And England and Spain and the rest of the European nations. But right now they want us to do all the heavy lifting. It's always easier to criticize when you're not on the field, is it not? Especially when you're high in the stands. I can see a guy open down there. Why don't you pass to him? You're trying to throw the game away. We're trying to defend America. We will be back here tomorrow at 6. Please join us. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.